them with awareness and leave them with reflection. Emotional reactions will soften because you have practiced mindset preparation. Stress will decrease because you have prioritized what matters. Confidence will increase because you see consistent alignment between your values and your actions. Designing intentional mornings and evenings is not about controlling every hour. It is about honoring the transition points that influence everything else. These bookends frame your day. They shape your perspective. They strengthen your discipline. They nurture your growth. Imagine waking each day with clarity instead of confusion. Imagine ending each night with gratitude instead of regret. Imagine carrying a steady sense of direction through the highs and lows of daily life. This is not a distant dream. It begins with simple, consistent choices. Your life is built one day at a time. And each day begins and ends with an opportunity to choose intention. Guard those moments. Shape them thoughtfully. Let them anchor your purpose. When you design your mornings and evenings with care, you create a life that feels steady, meaningful, and deeply aligned with who you're becoming. Chapter 6: Mastering Focus in a Distracted World. Your life moves in the direction of your focus. What you consistently give your attention to will eventually shape your thoughts, your habits, your relationships, and your future. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess, yet it is also one of the most aggressively targeted. Modern life is designed to compete for your focus. Notifications flash. Screens glow. Headlines demand urgency. Entertainment streams endlessly. The world does not simply invite your attention, it pursues it. If you do not intentionally guard your focus, it will be fragmented. And fragmented focus leads to fragmented results. You may feel busy all day, and yet accomplish very little that truly matters. You may move from task to task without depth. You may consume endless information without reflection. Over time, this constant switching weakens your ability to concentrate, to think deeply, and to act with purpose. Intentional living requires mastering your focus, because attention is the gateway to action. You cannot build meaningful habits without sustained concentration. You cannot nurture strong relationships while constantly distracted. You cannot pursue long-term goals if your mind is scattered across 100 small interruptions. Focus is not merely a productivity tool. It is a life tool. Digital distraction is one of the most significant challenges of this era. Devices have become extensions of daily life. They offer convenience, connection, and opportunity. Yet they also introduce constant interruption. Every notification triggers a small shift in attention. Even when you resist responding immediately, your mind has already been diverted. Over time, this repeated disruption trains your brain to expect stimulation. Silence begins to feel uncomfortable. Stillness feels unfamiliar. The problem is not technology itself. The problem is unconscious consumption. When you use technology deliberately, it can serve your vision. When you use it reactively, it begins to shape your behavior. You open your phone to check one message, and emerge 20 minutes later unsure how you arrived there. You sit down to complete an important task, yet find yourself switching tabs repeatedly. The result is not only lost time, but diminished mental clarity. Overstimulation compounds the issue. Bright screens, rapid information, and constant updates flood your senses. Your brain becomes accustomed to high-speed input. As a result, slower, deeper tasks feel more difficult. Reading a thoughtful book requires patience. Engaging in meaningful conversation requires presence. Working on a long-term project requires sustained effort. Without deliberate practice, your ability to remain focused weakens. Recognizing this challenge is not a reason for discouragement. It is an invitation to reclaim control. Focus can be trained. Attention can be strengthened. But it requires boundaries. Boundaries with technology are acts of self-respect. They are not extreme rejections of modern life. They are intentional decisions about how you engage with it. Begin by observing your current patterns. When do you reach for your phone? How often do you check notifications? How frequently do you interrupt yourself while working? Awareness reveals where boundaries are needed. Consider designating specific times for checking messages and social platforms instead of allowing them to interrupt your day at random. Silence non-essential notifications. Create physical distance between yourself and your device during focused work sessions. These small adjustments reduce mental fragmentation. They create space for deeper thinking. Protecting your focus also requires clarity about priorities. When everything feels urgent, nothing receives full attention. If you begin your day without identifying what matters most, you are more likely to drift toward whatever demands immediate response. Intentional focus starts with asking yourself a simple question each morning: what deserves my best energy today? Choose one or two key priorities that align with your long-term vision. Commit to giving them uninterrupted attention before turning to less significant tasks. This practice reinforces alignment between your daily actions and your broader purpose. It shifts you from reactive mode into proactive mode. Deep focus is a skill that must be cultivated. It requires removing distractions, setting clear intentions, and allowing yourself to become fully immersed in a single task. At first, this may feel challenging. Your mind may resist stillness. You may feel tempted to switch activities. This discomfort is natural. It reflects the adjustment from constant stimulation to concentrated effort. When you persist, something powerful happens. Your work improves. Your creativity expands. Your efficiency increases. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable because you are no longer dividing your attention. Deep focus produces momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Rest is another essential component of mastering focus. Constant busyness without recovery leads to mental fatigue. When your mind is exhausted, distraction becomes more appealing. Intentional breaks, moments of quiet and time away from screens restore clarity. Paradoxically, stepping away from work often enhances productivity when you return. It is also important to recognize the emotional aspect of distraction. Sometimes you avoid deep focus not because of external interruptions, but because of internal discomfort. Meaningful work often requires confronting uncertainty or vulnerability. It may require facing the possibility of failure. Distraction becomes a convenient escape. When you notice this pattern, respond with compassion rather than judgment. Acknowledge the discomfort and gently redirect your attention back to your task. Focus strengthens identity. When you consistently honor your priorities, you begin to see yourself as disciplined and capable. Each completed task reinforces trust in yourself. Over time, this self-trust becomes one of your greatest assets. You no longer rely solely on fleeting motivation. You rely on the evidence of your own consistency. Your relationships also benefit from focused attention. In conversations, presence communicates respect. When you listen fully without glancing at your phone, you deepen connection. When you engage thoughtfully rather than distractedly, you build trust. Mastering focus is not only about productivity, it is about honoring the people and opportunities in front of you. The truth is simple yet profound. Attention is limited. You cannot give full focus to everything simultaneously. Each yes to distraction is a no to depth. Each moment spent scrolling mindlessly is a moment not invested in growth. This does not mean eliminating all leisure or entertainment. It means choosing consciously rather than consuming compulsively. Intentional living requires vigilance. The world will continue to compete for your attention. New platforms will emerge. Notifications will multiply. Urgency will intensify. But you possess the power to decide what deserves your focus. You can choose to cultivate stillness in a noisy world. You can choose depth in a culture of speed. Imagine what becomes possible when your attention is concentrated rather than scattered. Imagine completing meaningful projects with excellence. Imagine engaging fully in your relationships. Imagine ending your days feeling accomplished, rather than drained by distraction. This transformation begins not with drastic measures, but with deliberate choices. Guard your focus as you would guard a precious resource, because it is one. Train your mind to return to what matters. Create boundaries that protect your energy. Prioritize depth over speed. When you master your attention, you reclaim your direction. Your future is shaped by what you repeatedly focus on. Choose wisely. Protect your mind. Align your attention with your purpose. In doing so, you step into a life that is not dictated by distraction, but directed by intention. Chapter 7. Setting boundaries that protect your energy. Living with intention is not only about what you choose to pursue. It is also about what you choose to decline. Every time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. You are allocating your time, your energy, your focus, and your emotional capacity. If you are not deliberate about where those resources go, you will eventually find yourself depleted, resentful, and disconnected from your own priorities. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your energy. They define what you are responsible for and what you are not. They clarify what you will accept and what you will not tolerate. They are not walls designed to isolate you from others. They are guardrails designed to keep you aligned with your values. Many people struggle with boundaries because they misunderstand them. They associate boundaries with selfishness or harshness. They fear that saying no will damage relationships. They worry that asserting their needs will make them appear difficult. As a result, they overextend themselves. They agree to commitments they cannot sustain. They absorb responsibilities that are not theirs. They sacrifice rest and clarity in an attempt to maintain approval. At the root of this struggle is often people-pleasing. The desire to be liked and accepted is deeply human. You may have learned early in life that approval brought safety or affirmation. You may have discovered that accommodating others avoided conflict. Over time, this pattern becomes automatic. You say yes before fully considering the cost. You volunteer when you are already overwhelmed. You apologize for needing space. But people-pleasing comes at a price. When you consistently prioritize others' expectations over your own values, you begin to lose yourself. Resentment quietly builds. Exhaustion becomes constant. Your ability to show up fully diminishes because you are running on empty. Ironically, the very relationships you try to preserve through overcommitment may suffer because you are no longer present or authentic. Intentional living requires courage. It requires the courage to disappoint others occasionally, in order to remain aligned with your purpose. It requires the courage to say no without over-explaining. It requires the courage to trust that healthy relationships can withstand honest communication. Consider the cost of overcommitment. When your schedule is packed beyond capacity, your focus becomes fragmented. You rush from one responsibility to the next without depth. You lose the ability to prioritize what truly matters. Important tasks are squeezed into leftover moments. Rest becomes an afterthought. Over time, your physical and emotional health decline. Overcommitment also erodes quality. When you try to do everything, you rarely do anything exceptionally well. Your energy is divided. Your creativity is stifled. Your enthusiasm fades. By saying yes to too much, you inadvertently reduce the impact of what you could have done with greater focus. Boundaries restore balance. They allow you to channel your energy toward what aligns with your values and vision. They create space for rest, reflection, and growth. They ensure that your yes is meaningful because it is not given lightly. Setting boundaries begins with self-awareness. You must first identify where your energy is being drained unnecessarily. Reflect on situations that leave you feeling exhausted or resentful. Notice patterns in your work environment, your friendships, and your family dynamics. Where do you feel obligated rather than inspired? Where do you say yes out of fear rather than desire? Fear of disappointing others is one of the strongest obstacles to healthy boundaries. You may imagine negative reactions before they even occur. You may assume that declining a request will damage trust. Yet disappointment is not the same as rejection. Someone may feel temporarily disappointed when you say no, but that does not mean they value you less. In fact, consistent boundaries often increase respect. When people understand your limits, they learn how to engage with you more effectively. Clear communication is essential. Boundaries do not need to be dramatic or confrontational. They can be expressed calmly and confidently. You might say that you are unable to take on additional responsibilities at this time. You might explain that you need time to focus on existing commitments. You might clarify that certain behaviors make you uncomfortable. The key is to speak from your own perspective rather than attacking others. Confidence grows with practice. The first few times you assert a boundary may feel uncomfortable. You may second-guess yourself. You may feel tempted to retract your statement to ease tension. But each time you honor your limits, you strengthen your self-respect. You reinforce the belief that your time and energy matter. Boundaries in the workplace are particularly important. Professional environments often reward availability and responsiveness. You may feel pressure to answer messages immediately or to accept every project offered. While dedication is admirable, constant accessibility can lead to burnout. Establishing reasonable limits around work hours, communication expectations, and workload protects your productivity and well-being. In relationships, boundaries foster authenticity. When you hide your needs to maintain harmony, connection becomes superficial. Honest conversations about expectations and limits create deeper trust. You allow others to know you fully, rather than presenting a curated version designed to avoid conflict. Healthy relationships are not built on constant agreement, they are built on mutual respect. Personal commitments also require boundaries. Your time is finite. Every invitation, every opportunity, every request competes for it. Before agreeing to something new, pause and consider whether it aligns with your values. Ask yourself whether you have the capacity to give it your best. If the answer is no, decline graciously. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it is responsible. One of the most powerful shifts occurs when you begin to view boundaries as an act of stewardship. Your energy is a resource entrusted to you. It fuels your purpose. It sustains your relationships. It supports your growth. When you allow that resource to be drained indiscriminately, you compromise your ability to live intentionally. There will be moments when boundaries are tested. Someone may push back. Circumstances may tempt you to revert to old patterns. In those moments, return to your values. Remember why you are protecting your energy. Remember that every boundary you uphold strengthens your alignment. It is also important to recognize that boundaries are not static. As seasons change, your capacity may shift. What you could handle comfortably in one phase of life may become overwhelming in another. Stay attentive to these changes. Adjust your limits accordingly. Intentional living requires flexibility as well as firmness. As you develop the habit of setting boundaries, you will notice a transformation in your daily experience. Your schedule will feel lighter because it reflects deliberate choices rather than impulsive agreements. Your relationships will feel more authentic because they are grounded in honesty. Your work will feel more focused because your energy is not scattered. You will also discover a deeper sense of peace. When you know that your yes is intentional and your no is confident, you release the constant tension of trying to please everyone. You stop measuring your worth by external approval. You begin to measure it by integrity. Setting boundaries does not mean isolating yourself. It means engaging with others from a place of clarity rather than compulsion. It means choosing connection without sacrificing alignment. It means recognizing that you cannot pour endlessly from an empty cup. Your energy is precious. Your time is limited. Your focus is powerful. Guard them wisely. Say yes to what aligns with your vision. Say no to what drains your purpose. Speak with honesty. Stand with confidence. Trust that healthy relationships will adapt. When you protect your energy, you create space for intention to flourish. You reclaim ownership of your life. You step into a rhythm that is sustainable, purposeful, and deeply aligned with who you are becoming. Chapter 8: Cultivating Mindfulness and Presence. In a world that constantly urges you to move faster, consume more, and react instantly, presence can feel like a quiet rebellion. Yet if intentional living is about choosing your life on purpose, then mindfulness is the muscle that makes that choice possible. You cannot choose wisely if you are not aware. You cannot align your actions with your values if you are disconnected from your inner world. Presence is not about escaping responsibility or retreating from ambition. It is about engaging with your life so fully that your choices become conscious rather than automatic. Mindfulness is often misunderstood as something mystical or reserved for silent retreats and perfectly still mornings. In truth, mindfulness is far simpler and far more powerful. It is the practice of paying attention on purpose. It is noticing your thoughts without immediately believing them. It is feeling your emotions without being controlled by them. It is observing your environment without rushing to judge it. When you cultivate presence, you begin to see your life as it is, rather than as your fears or assumptions interpret it to be. Most people live in one of two places, the past or the future. The past carries regret, replayed conversations, old wounds and memories that shape self-image. The future carries anxiety, anticipation, worry, and imagined outcomes that may never occur. Meanwhile, the present moment, the only place where life actually unfolds, goes largely unnoticed. Intentional living requires returning to this moment again and again, because this moment is where your power resides. When you are present, you notice your internal patterns. You become aware of how quickly your mind jumps to conclusions. You see how certain situations trigger old reactions. You begin to recognize habits of thought that have quietly shaped your decisions for years. This awareness is not meant to shame you. It is meant to free you. You cannot change what you do not see. Presence shines a light on unconscious behavior, and that light creates choice. Emotional regulation is one of the greatest gifts mindfulness offers. Without awareness, emotions can feel overwhelming and immediate. Anger flares and words spill out before you can stop them. Anxiety tightens your chest and dictates your choices. Disappointment clouds your perspective and makes you question your progress. But when you practice presence, a small but powerful gap begins to form between stimulus and response. In that gap lives your freedom. Instead of reacting instantly, you learn to pause. Instead of suppressing your feelings, you allow yourself to acknowledge them. You name what you are experiencing without dramatizing it. You breathe. In that simple act of noticing and pausing, you reclaim control over your behavior. The emotion may still be there, but it no longer commands you. You respond rather than react. This shift may seem subtle, but over time it transforms relationships, career decisions, and personal growth. Slowing down is essential to cultivating presence. The pace of modern life can make stillness feel uncomfortable. Many people fill every spare moment with noise, scrolling, streaming, multitasking, because silence exposes the chatter of the mind. Yet that chatter is not your enemy. It is information. When you slow down, you begin to hear your true concerns, your unmet needs, and your deeper desires. You become aware of what energizes you and what drains you. You notice when you are operating from fear instead of confidence. Slowing down does not mean becoming unproductive. In fact, it often leads to greater effectiveness. When you are fully present with a task, you complete it with greater clarity and fewer mistakes. When you are fully present in a conversation, the other person feels heard and valued. When you are fully present with yourself, you make decisions that align with your values rather than impulsive urges. Simple grounding practices can anchor you in the present moment throughout your day. Something as basic as focusing on your breath for a few minutes can reset your nervous system. Noticing the physical sensations in your body can draw your attention away from racing thoughts. Observing your surroundings, the sound of birds, the texture of your desk, the warmth of sunlight, brings you back to the here and now. These practices are not complicated, but their impact is profound when done consistently. Presence also deepens self-awareness. When you observe your thoughts regularly, you begin to see patterns. You may notice a tendency towards self-criticism. You may recognize how often you assume the worst before any evidence appears. You may discover that certain environments increase stress, while others foster calm. This awareness empowers you to make adjustments. You can challenge limiting beliefs. You can change environments. You can interrupt negative cycles. Mindfulness strengthens emotional intelligence, which is essential for intentional living. Emotional intelligence involves understanding your own emotions and recognizing them in others. It allows you to navigate conflict with maturity. It enables you to empathize rather than judge. When you are present, you listen more carefully. You pick up on subtle cues in tone and body language. You respond thoughtfully, instead of defensively. Improved decision-making naturally follows. When your mind is scattered, decisions are rushed and reactive. When you are grounded, you consider long-term consequences. You evaluate options through the lens of your values. You notice whether a decision is driven by fear, ego, or genuine alignment. Presence does not eliminate uncertainty, but it helps you move forward with clarity rather than chaos. Mindfulness also transforms your relationship with productivity. Instead of measuring your worth by how much you accomplish, you begin to value the quality of your engagement. You realize that being busy is not the same as being purposeful. Presence helps you distinguish between meaningful work and frantic activity. You become more selective about where you invest your energy. There will be days when your mind feels restless despite your efforts. Presence is not about achieving a perfectly calm state at all times. It is about returning again and again to awareness. Some days that return will feel easy. Other days it will feel like a struggle. Both experiences are part of the practice. The key is consistency, not perfection. As you cultivate mindfulness, you may notice subtle shifts in how you experience life. Meals taste richer when you are not distracted. Conversations feel deeper when you are not mentally elsewhere. Achievements feel more satisfying because you are fully present to appreciate them. Even challenges become opportunities for growth because you approach them with awareness rather than avoidance. Living with intention requires courage, and presence strengthens that courage. When you are aware of your internal landscape, you are less afraid of it. You stop running from uncomfortable emotions and begin learning from them. You recognize that feelings are temporary visitors, not permanent identities. This understanding builds resilience. You trust yourself more because you know you can handle what arises. Presence connects you to gratitude. When you slow down enough to notice what is already good, appreciation naturally emerges. You see the small blessings that once went unnoticed. Gratitude shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance. It reminds you that even while striving for growth, there is beauty in the current moment. Cultivating mindfulness is not about withdrawing from ambition or ignoring responsibilities. It is about engaging more deeply with both. It is about making decisions from clarity rather than compulsion. It is about living each day with awareness of your thoughts, emotions, and actions. This awareness creates alignment, and alignment creates peace. Intentional living is built on thousands of small conscious moments. Every time you pause before responding, every time you breathe instead of react, every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you strengthen your capacity for presence. Over time, these moments accumulate into a life that feels grounded and authentic. You do not need to overhaul your entire routine to begin. Start with a few minutes of intentional breathing. Notice your thoughts without judgment. Pay attention to your environment. Bring your full attention to the next conversation you have. Each act of awareness is a step toward a more intentional life. Being present does not mean your life will be free of challenges. It means you will meet those challenges with clarity and composure. It means your decisions will reflect your values rather than your impulses. It means you will experience your life as it unfolds, instead of watching it pass by in a blur. The present moment is where your power lives. It is where your choices take shape. It is where your intentions become actions. When you commit to cultivating mindfulness and presence, you are not just improving your focus. You are reclaiming ownership of your life. And that is the essence of living with intention every single day. Chapter 9: Navigating Setbacks with Purpose. Living with intention does not mean that life will be easy. In fact, intentional living often amplifies the challenges you face, because the stakes feel higher when your actions are aligned with your values and your vision. Even the most disciplined, focused, and mindful individuals encounter setbacks. Plans fail, circumstances change, relationships fracture, and dreams stall. What distinguishes those who thrive from those who flounder is not the absence of obstacles, but the approach taken when life refuses to follow the script. Setbacks can feel jarring. They interrupt momentum and shake confidence. They provoke frustration, disappointment, and even self-doubt. When something goes wrong, an opportunity slips away, a project fails, a personal relationship suffers, it is natural to feel overwhelmed. The mind instinctively searches for causes and often lands on harsh self-criticism. I should have done better. I should have known. I am not capable. Yet this response, while understandable, is neither productive nor reflective of your capacity for growth. Intentional living requires reframing setbacks. A setback is not an endpoint. It is not a reflection of your worth or your vision. It is information. It is a signal that something in your approach, timing, or expectations needs attention. When you begin to see setbacks as opportunities for recalibration rather than defeat, you reclaim your agency. You shift from being a passive recipient of circumstance to an active participant in your life. The first step in navigating setbacks with purpose is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean giving up on your goals or minimizing the significance of the challenge. Acceptance means acknowledging reality without resistance, without embellishment, and without denial. You recognize what has happened and allow yourself to feel the emotions that accompany it. This honesty is the foundation of clarity. You cannot respond effectively if you are clinging to wishful thinking or drowning in frustration. Once you have accepted the situation, reflection becomes essential. Ask yourself with curiosity rather than judgment, what can be learned? What factors contributed to this outcome? What was within your control and what was not? Reflection turns a painful experience into a teacher. It helps you identify patterns, blind spots, and misalignments. Even failure contains information that, when examined carefully, can guide your next steps. Resilience is cultivated through this process. Resilience is not the ability to avoid pain. It is the ability to persist and adapt despite it. Resilient individuals do not pretend setbacks are inconsequential. They confront the discomfort and use it to strengthen themselves. They recognize that temporary disruption does not negate long-term purpose. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to test commitment, sharpen skills, and refine strategy. Adaptability is equally important. Life is unpredictable. Plans are made but circumstances change. Opportunities arise and vanish. Relationships evolve. Health fluctuates. Intentional living does not require rigid adherence to a fixed path. It requires flexibility in navigating change while staying aligned with your core values and vision. Adaptability is the skill that allows you to pivot without losing direction. It enables you to modify tactics while maintaining purpose. One of the most powerful tools for navigating setbacks is perspective. Consider the way you frame the challenge in your mind. Do you view it as a catastrophe, an injustice, or evidence of personal failure? Or do you see it as a momentary obstacle, a signal to pause and adjust, and a chance to learn? Perspective shapes emotional response. It influences decision-making. A narrow, fear-based view constricts options. A broader, growth-oriented view expands them. Choosing perspective is a conscious act that restores agency. Setbacks also test patience. The natural impulse is to rush solutions, to reclaim momentum immediately, to force progress. Yet some challenges require time, observation, and careful deliberation. Patience allows clarity to emerge. It prevents impulsive decisions that might exacerbate the situation. It encourages measured, thoughtful action. In many cases, the path forward is revealed not through speed, but through reflection and steady adjustment. Maintaining purpose during disruption is vital. Purpose is the compass that guides you when the terrain is uncertain. When external circumstances shift, your vision and values remain your anchor. They remind you why you started, what you are building, and what truly matters. Purpose prevents you from being derailed by temporary setbacks. It keeps your energy focused on meaningful outcomes rather than on reactive, short-term fixes. Emotional regulation is an essential companion to resilience and purpose. Setbacks often provoke intense emotions: frustration, disappointment, fear, even grief. These emotions are natural, but if they dominate your response, they can cloud judgment and drive reactive behavior. Mindfulness and presence, cultivated earlier in intentional living, become crucial here. They allow you to observe your emotions without being consumed by them, to feel without overreacting, and to choose actions aligned with long-term goals rather than immediate impulses. Setbacks are also opportunities to practice humility. They remind us that control is limited, that unpredictability is inherent in life, and that growth often emerges through discomfort. Humility does not diminish ambition, it deepens perspective. It encourages reflection, collaboration, and a willingness to learn. When approached with humility, setbacks become teachers rather than punishers. Connection with others can provide support and clarity during setbacks. Sharing struggles with trusted individuals does not indicate weakness. It allows you to gain insight, perspective, and encouragement. Others may offer solutions you had not considered, or simply provide the reassurance that your response to difficulty is normal and human. Healthy relationships are strengthened not only in times of ease, but also in moments of adversity. It is also important to distinguish between temporary setbacks and permanent derailment. Many obstacles feel final in the moment, yet over time they reveal themselves as part of the journey. A project failure, a missed opportunity, or a relationship challenge does not negate your progress. It is a waypoint, not the destination. Recognizing this distinction reduces panic and encourages thoughtful navigation. Action planning follows reflection. Once you have processed the setback and understood its lessons, the next step is to determine practical adjustments. What changes can you make to prevent similar challenges in the future? What skills, resources, or habits need reinforcement? What priorities require re-evaluation? Action turns insight into progress. It transforms disappointment into forward motion. Even setbacks that feel entirely outside your control can yield growth. Life's unpredictability teaches resilience, adaptability, and creativity. It forces you to confront assumptions, expand problem-solving skills, and develop patience. Over time, individuals who navigate challenges with intention often emerge stronger, more self-aware, and more capable of handling future disruptions. Setbacks, when approached with purpose, are not hindrances, they are catalysts. Gratitude can coexist with setbacks. Even in difficult moments, aspects of life remain that are worthy of appreciation. Gratitude shifts focus from loss to perspective. It does not erase difficulty but tempers it with acknowledgement of what remains stable, meaningful, or beneficial. This balance supports emotional resilience and encourages constructive response rather than despair. Consistency in alignment with values provides stability during turbulent times. When you have cultivated habits, boundaries, focus, and presence, you possess internal structures that support you through disruption. These practices act like roots in a storm. They do not prevent the storm, but they stabilize the tree. When external circumstances shift, your internal alignment allows you to respond with composure and clarity. Finally, setbacks remind us of the iterative nature of intentional living. Progress is rarely linear. Life is a series of cycles, adjustments, and recalibrations. Challenges are part of the terrain, not exceptions to the rule. By expecting and planning for setbacks, you reduce fear and increase preparedness. You understand that each obstacle contains both difficulty and opportunity. Navigating setbacks with purpose is ultimately an exercise in agency. You acknowledge reality without surrendering your vision. You process emotions without being controlled by them. You reflect without judgment. You adjust without abandoning your values. You act with intention despite uncertainty. In doing so, you transform adversity into a tool for growth. The test of intentional living is not in smooth sailing. It is in navigating turbulence with integrity, courage, and focus. When setbacks arrive, as they inevitably will, you will not be derailed. You will respond with clarity, guided by purpose. You will learn from each experience, recalibrate your approach, and continue moving forward. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen your resilience, deepen your insight, and reaffirm your commitment to the life you are intentionally building. Setbacks are inevitable. Defeat is optional. With presence, reflection, purpose, and action, every disruption can serve as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. By approaching adversity as an integral part of intentional living, you cultivate not only the ability to survive challenges, but to thrive because of them. In the face of uncertainty, you maintain alignment. In the midst of failure, you discover growth. And through every trial, your life moves steadily, intentionally, toward the vision you have chosen. Chapter 10: Becoming the Architect of Your Days. Living intentionally is not a one-time effort, a fleeting commitment, or a set of occasional practices. It is a way of being, a lifestyle rooted in conscious choice, reflection, and purposeful action. By the time you reach this stage in your journey, you have explored the core principles of intentional living, defining your purpose, clarifying your values, creating a vision, aligning your habits, designing mornings and evenings, mastering focus, setting boundaries, cultivating presence, and navigating setbacks. All of these lessons converge into a single truth: your life is the product of your daily decisions. You are not merely experiencing time, you are shaping it. You are not a passive passenger on the currents of circumstance, you are the architect of your days. To become the architect of your life is to shift from reacting to designing. It is to replace autopilot routines with conscious creation. It is to approach each day with awareness, to consider each decision as a building block of your future, and to recognize that small choices compound into a life of profound impact. This chapter is about integrating all you have learned into a sustainable, evolving framework that allows you to live with intentionality every day, not occasionally. At the heart of this transformation is identity. The most powerful change comes not from temporary behaviors, but from seeing yourself differently. You are not someone who tries to live intentionally. You are someone who decides intentionally. You are not someone who hopes to make better choices. You are someone who claims ownership of your actions, your energy, and your time. Identity precedes action. The more you internalize that you are a deliberate decision maker, the more naturally your behaviors align with your values and vision. Becoming the architect of your days begins with clarity about what matters most. Everything you do in a day consumes finite resources, attention, energy, and time. Intentional living is about prioritizing what aligns with your vision and values, while minimizing what does not. It requires constant awareness and evaluation, which commitments advance your goals and which merely occupy space. Which interactions energize and which deplete. Which habits reinforce your purpose and which distract from it. By asking these questions regularly, you ensure that each day is a deliberate reflection of your priorities. A personal daily intention framework is a practical way to operationalize this approach. This framework is not a rigid schedule, but a guide that anchors your day in purpose. It begins each morning with clarity, a few minutes spent reflecting on your vision, reaffirming your values, and setting a central focus for the day. This focus is not a to-do list of tasks, it is a guiding principle that informs your choices. Perhaps your intention is to practice patience, to create meaningful connections, to make progress on a long-term project, or to approach challenges with courage. By naming this intention at the start of the day, you direct your energy toward what truly matters. Throughout the day, the framework acts as a compass. It reminds you to return to awareness when distraction arises. It encourages you to make decisions aligned with your values rather than with fleeting impulses. It reinforces boundaries, helping you say no to what detracts from your purpose and yes to what advances it. Even in moments of unpredictability, this framework provides stability, a consistent reference point that guides behavior regardless of circumstance. The evening portion of the framework is equally critical. Reflection and review solidify the lessons of the day and inform adjustments for the next. This is the time to ask yourself, where did I act intentionally? Where did I drift? What choices reinforced my values, and which ones diverted me? Reflection is not self-judgment, it is self-guidance. It allows you to observe patterns, celebrate progress, and course-correct without guilt or regret. Over time, this nightly ritual becomes a feedback loop that strengthens alignment between your actions and your vision. As you establish this rhythm, habits naturally align with your purpose. The behaviors that once required effort and discipline become expressions of your identity. Waking early, prioritizing meaningful work, practicing mindfulness, protecting boundaries, and engaging fully with relationships are no longer tasks to check off. They are how you live because they are who you have become. Identity-driven habits are sustainable because they are rooted in self-concept rather than fleeting motivation. Becoming the architect of your days also requires adaptability. Life is fluid. Seasons change. Responsibilities evolve. Challenges arise unexpectedly. Intentional living does not mean rigidity. It means resilience and flexibility within a framework of values and vision. Your daily intention framework can evolve with your circumstances. Some days may require more focus on rest. Others may demand more energy toward growth or connection. The key is to remain anchored in purpose, while responding thoughtfully to life's dynamics. Another essential element is self-compassion. Designing your days does not imply perfection. Even the most intentional individuals encounter distraction, fatigue, or error. Setbacks are part of the journey, not a failure of character. The architect of their life recognizes this truth. Missteps are opportunities to learn and recalibrate. Each evening, each reflection, each pause is a chance to realign with your values and continue building the life you desire. Energy management is central to this approach. Intentional living is not about cramming more tasks into each day. It is about directing your energy toward the people, projects and experiences that matter. By observing where your energy is strongest, you can schedule your day around focus, creativity, and emotional resilience. By acknowledging moments of fatigue and planning for recovery, you prevent burnout and sustain momentum over the long term. Energy, after all, is a finite resource, and its careful allocation determines the quality of your days. Integration of all previous lessons is what transforms intentional living from theory into practice. Your vision sets the destination. Your values define the path. Habits build the infrastructure. Mornings and evenings create the rhythm. Focus preserves direction. Boundaries protect energy. Mindfulness ensures awareness. Setbacks become stepping stones rather than obstacles. Each element reinforces the others, creating a life where purpose, clarity, and fulfillment are not occasional experiences but consistent realities. Perhaps the most profound aspect of being the architect of your days is the empowerment it brings. Ownership over your time and choices generates confidence. Decision-making becomes deliberate rather than reactive. Life feels less like a series of accidents and more like a consciously designed journey. This empowerment is liberating. It reduces anxiety, increases resilience, and amplifies satisfaction. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You are shaping them with intention. Long-term commitment is essential. Intentional living is not a sprint, it is a marathon. It is the cumulative effect of thousands of small decisions, made consistently over time. Each day you live aligned with your values is another brick laid in the structure of your life. Each choice to act deliberately strengthens your identity. Each reflection and recalibration ensures the integrity of your ongoing design. Over months and years, the compounded effect is a life of depth, meaning, and purpose. This commitment also invites continuous growth. Becoming the architect of your days does not mean stagnation. It is a dynamic practice that evolves as you evolve. Your vision may expand, your values may refine, and your priorities may shift. By maintaining awareness, reflecting regularly, and adapting thoughtfully, you ensure that your life remains a true expression of your authentic self, rather than a static imitation of past choices or external expectations. The journey of intentional living culminates in freedom. When you are conscious of your choices, aligned with your values, and proactive in designing your days, you are liberated from the passive drift that ensnares many. You wake with purpose, engage with clarity, navigate challenges with resilience, and close each day with reflection and gratitude. You live as a creator, rather than a consumer of life. You live deliberately, fully, and meaningfully. Ultimately, becoming the architect of your days is a daily practice. It is the culmination of awareness, reflection, and action. It requires courage to make choices that align with your values, patience to sustain habits over time, and compassion to forgive yourself when mistakes occur. It demands vigilance in protecting your focus and energy, resilience in the face of setbacks, and presence in the midst of life's distractions. Your days are not predetermined. They are not fixed by circumstance, expectation, or habit. They are yours to design. Each morning offers the blank canvas of possibility. Each decision is a stroke of intention. Each action builds the architecture of your life. Over time, this consistent practice creates a reality that is coherent, purposeful, and deeply aligned with who you are and who you are becoming. When you fully embrace this role, the architect of your days, you recognize that your power lies not in external conditions but in internal mastery. You understand that intentional living is not about controlling life, but about consciously shaping your responses, choices, and priorities. You live with clarity, act with purpose, and move through life with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that each day, however ordinary it may seem, is a building block of their extraordinary life. The essence of intentional living is this: you are not waiting for life to happen to you. You are designing it moment by moment, choice by choice. You are the planner, the decision maker, and the executor. You hold the pen that writes your story, the brush that paints your reality, and the hands that shape the structure of your days. To live intentionally is to recognize that time is your most precious material, and that every day is an opportunity to create a life of depth, purpose, and fulfillment. You are not merely passing through life. You are designing it, and in doing so you become the person you were always meant to be. Your future is built on the foundation of today. Own it. Shape it. Live it. Each day is your blueprint, and you are the architect. Conclusion: a life built on conscious choices. As you reach the end of this journey through the principles of intentional living, it is essential to pause and reflect on what you have discovered. The path we have explored together is not about sudden transformations, grand gestures, or a checklist of achievements that will instantly define a perfect life. Intentional living is subtler, quieter, and profoundly more powerful than that. It is about the accumulation of small, conscious choices made day after day, moment after moment. Each decision, no matter how ordinary it may seem, contributes to the architecture of your life. In truth, the life you are striving to build is not shaped primarily by monumental actions, but by the repeated deliberate attention you give to your thoughts, behaviors, and priorities. The most important lesson to carry forward is that intention is a practice, not a destination. It is not something you achieve once and then forget, nor is it a badge of perfection you wear. It is a way of living that requires consistent engagement. You practice intention when you pause to reflect before reacting, when you choose your focus amid distraction, when you honor your boundaries, and when you align your actions with your values. These practices are not a temporary fix. They are the daily threads that weave a life of meaning and alignment. It is easy to fall into the trap of believing that intentional living demands a complete life overhaul before any progress is visible. You might feel that you need to change every habit, rethink every relationship, or abandon all routines that do not fit your vision. But this is neither realistic nor necessary. The power of intention lies in starting where you are, accepting your current circumstances, and making small deliberate choices that move you closer to alignment. One thoughtful action today, one moment of awareness, one conscious decision, compounds over time into profound transformation. Conscious choices begin with self-awareness. When you are attentive to your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, you notice where life has been running on autopilot. You observe where your energy has been spent unconsciously, where your focus has been hijacked by distraction, and where your actions may not align with your deeper values. This awareness is not about judgment or self-criticism, it is about illumination. You cannot navigate your life intentionally if you do not first understand where you currently stand. Awareness creates clarity, and clarity is the foundation of meaningful choice. From clarity comes action. Living intentionally requires courage, the courage to make decisions that honor your priorities, even when it feels uncomfortable or inconvenient. You will be tested. Some choices may disappoint others, challenge your comfort zones, or demand sustained effort. Yet each choice aligned with your values strengthens your sense of agency. Each moment you choose deliberately, rather than reactively, reinforces your identity as a person who lives with purpose. Over time, these choices create a momentum that carries you forward, making intentional living not just an occasional effort, but a natural expression of who you are. Consistency is another cornerstone of intentional living. Life is filled with distractions, interruptions, and unanticipated challenges. The world is constantly vying for your attention, your energy, and your time. In this environment, intention cannot be an occasional decision, it must be a steady practice. The most impactful changes are rarely dramatic, they are cumulative. Small, repeated actions, reflecting on your day, prioritizing your focus, protecting your energy, practicing presence, and responding thoughtfully to setbacks, build resilience, clarity, and alignment. The daily commitment to act consciously is what transforms ordinary days into a life of meaning. Boundaries and energy management are critical in maintaining this consistency. Saying no to what drains you is just as important as saying yes to what nurtures your vision. Life is finite, and your energy is a limited resource. Intentional living asks you to protect both with discernment. When you choose where to invest your attention, when you decide what commitments are aligned with your values, and when you create space for rest, reflection, and presence, you ensure that your actions are purposeful rather than reactive. Boundaries are not a restriction on your life. They are a safeguard for your freedom, your focus, and your capacity to thrive. Mindfulness and presence are the tools that allow conscious choices to remain grounded in reality. In the rush of daily life, it is easy to move on autopilot, reacting to stimuli without thought or reflection. Presence interrupts this cycle. It allows you to pause, observe, and respond with awareness. By cultivating mindfulness, you create a space between impulse and action. In that space, choice exists. You are no longer at the mercy of habit or external pressures. You are empowered to act in alignment with your values and vision. Even setbacks, challenges, and unexpected disruptions serve your journey when viewed through the lens of intention. Life is inherently unpredictable. Plans fail, circumstances shift, and disappointment occurs. Intentional living is not about avoiding these moments, but about responding to them consciously. Each setback is an opportunity for reflection, growth, and recalibration. When you approach adversity with clarity, resilience, and purpose, you transform disruption into a teacher, failure into feedback, and challenge into momentum. Your capacity to navigate difficulty without losing alignment is one of the most profound expressions of intentional living. As you integrate all of these principles, clarity of values, vision, habits, focus, boundaries, mindfulness, and resilience, you begin to inhabit a new identity. You are no longer someone who drifts through life, waiting for circumstances to dictate your path. You are a deliberate decision maker, the architect of your days. Each morning becomes a fresh canvas, each choice a brushstroke, and each action a building block of a life that reflects your deepest priorities and truest self. The beauty of intentional living is that it is adaptable. Life evolves, circumstances shift, and you grow. What felt right in one season may need adjustment in another. The framework you develop, your daily practices, routines, boundaries, and mindset, can and should evolve alongside you. Intentional living is not rigid. It is responsive, flexible, and resilient. It allows you to remain anchored in your values while navigating the natural ebb and flow of life. Remember, this is a journey, not a race. Progress is not measured by perfection, speed, or comparison to others. It is measured by alignment, awareness, and consistency. Each day that you act with intention, each choice that reflects your values, and each moment that you live with presence is a victory. Over time, these small daily victories accumulate into a life that is deeply meaningful, balanced, and authentically your own. Begin now, wherever you are. You do not need to wait for a perfect moment, an ideal schedule, or a complete life overhaul. Intention begins in the present moment, with the choice to act deliberately right now. Take a breath. Notice your thoughts. Decide your focus. Protect your energy. Engage with presence. Make choices that honor your values. Begin with small, manageable steps, and trust that they will compound over time into profound transformation. Ultimately, living with intention is a declaration of ownership. It is a commitment to yourself and your life. It is a refusal to drift aimlessly or to be swayed entirely by external pressures. It is an embrace of the responsibility and privilege that comes with conscious choice. By choosing each day with awareness, clarity, and purpose, you create a life that is aligned, fulfilling, and unmistakably your own. A life built on conscious choices is not perfect. It will still include challenges, uncertainty, and imperfection. But it will be real. It will be yours. Every thought, decision, and action will reflect the person you are becoming, the person who lives deliberately, who acts with purpose, and who moves through life as an empowered architect of their own days. This is the ultimate promise of intentional living, that by consistently choosing your path, even in small ways, you create a life of depth, meaning, and fulfillment. Every moment is an opportunity. Every day is a canvas. Your life is waiting for the choices only you can make. Begin now. Choose deliberately. Act consciously. Build a life that feels aligned, meaningful, and authentically, undeniably yours. Thank you for reading this book. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to leave us a review. TM Light. Disclaimer. This book was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. While every effort was made to ensure the accuracy and relevance of the content, readers should note that this cannot be considered professional advice. Readers are encouraged to apply their own judgment and consult experts where needed.